Here's with developmental disabilities, which is private nonprofits that primarily get state and Medicaid funding. Most people don't realize that all those people living in group homes probably getting paid and have to be paid by Medicaid. I've fired people, I've been fired, and never with the kind of cruelty that has happened under our current administration, who is not even paying attention to justice. And that's what worries me the most, that there's nothing to justice. So, I got a bullet point for you. Measure twice, cut once. That's important to remember. Measure twice, cut once. And I think everyone would agree that's not what we're seeing. We're seeing low-hanging fruit that's not even remotely related to waste and fraud. Getting cruelly, getting locked out of the computers, not being able to get. I have a cousin of a cousin who was not able to get into their office to get personal mementos, including pictures of their uncle and grandfather who had started the agency that they were working for, and they couldn't get. They were locked out of their office. Anyway, the other thing I just wanted to mention, I think one of the things that baffles me is in the general public, and you get it a lot on the talking points if you watch news, which I don't, but I've heard about it. People are confusing fraud and waste and inefficiency. They're not always the same thing. Fraud is an intentional deceit. It's often criminal. If there's a government agency committing fraud, it would involve bribery and corruption, usually very high level. If people are rooting out fraud, that needs to go to the Department of Justice. You don't just fire them and brag. Found fraud and rooted it out. And I think our voters have been kind of bamboozled into believing that searching for fraud means that we're going to find that one lazy SNAP user who buys caviar with your food stamps. And that is so minuscule. That is so minuscule compared to what we're looking at. That I think we need to keep our eye on, we need to keep our eye on what fraud really is, and that's not something that you don't just fire somebody if you find them guilty of fraud. You refer it to the courts, and we're not seeing that happen. So that immediately puts a red flag up, and I hope we can address that when we write to our congressional delegates. So, remember this, measure twice, cut once. Thank you.
A couple of concrete actions that you can make as elected officials for the County of Ravalli. You can do more than write letters, and in this moment, you must do more. There is litigation happening nationally that benefits the parties who are active in those cases. As one example, the funding that has been allocated from Congress is flowing to the states that have asked for that money to flow to them as litigants in those cases. You as a county can intervene and will have standing, and you can ask that that money come to your county. Our state attorney general has not intervened in those cases. That is remiss. That hurts Montanans, and you can make very concrete, specific asks, and in the absence of intervention on the part of the Attorney General, you can do so as a county and protect your constituents in that very concrete way. You can get the congressional delegation here. Make them sit in the seats you're in right now. There's no reason for them not to be here. We will all assume good intentions and that you have the best interests of your constituents at heart. And so make the people whose actions are causing this harm show up and look the people in the eyes that they are hurting and answer for it. You can make them come here and make that happen. This is real. The harm is happening now. Trails aren't being cleared, and toilets, as you heard, aren't being cleaned. But the damage to the forests and the prep work for the fires that will come is not happening. Who's going to pay for the cost of that? You can say, and put everyone on notice, you can flip the risk on this and say, you made the decision not to prepare for the fires that will come. when they come. The cost of that should not be borne by us, but by the people who are making these decisions. You can make those asks. And if you don't, be not just a letter writer, not just a representative, but a champion of the people you represent, you own the outcome. Thank you.
Not been mentioned here, and I don't want to go over all of the things. I support all of that. But over the last 2 decades, the building that replaced this building, that was put here by Margaret Daly, has grown tremendously. We have a healthcare facility that we can be proud of. At least since the mid-'80s, a key part of financing that has been the assumption that Medicaid would continue. Right now, the president has decided that while he said he would not touch Medicaid or Medicare, that he's going to go along with the House recommendation that $880 billion be cut from Medicaid. Quite simply, that'll destroy the program. That'll make it very difficult to pay off the bonds that were issued and the loans that were issued to build what we have. And when that happens, you have bankruptcy. So I can tell you from my own experience as a landowner here for about 40 years that many young families experience bankruptcy because of medical bills. And for that reason, my late wife and I lobbied very hard to get the Children's Health Program passed. That will be gone. If you have anyone in your family who's an educator, and I have many people in my family who are, that disappearance of Title I has consequences that last 60 to 70 years. It has made tremendous differences in the lives of millions of Americans. It's not prudent. It's not prudent. Thank you.
I'll do a live stream feed, which is worked intermittently, but has been awesome. So thank you all for your beautiful comments, and thank you so much for your attention. And I wanted to just add something that's a little bit of a twist. I heard things like trickle down, and I think there's an attitude that's been trickling down that's affecting our community. And it was recently I was reading the Ravalli Republic and this thing that's happening in the state of Montana where certain organizations here, the Dealing Mansion and the Council for the Arts, aren't going to get funding because they weren't grateful enough because they were just trying to mooch money, and they had time to do other things but not to bow down. And I was shocked. I was like, oh my God, like really? And so I just want to bring a point that's a little different than the point you've been making, which is about our attitude. I have lived in this community for 27 years, and what I have loved about it is that we can disagree, we can agree, we don't even care what the other person thinks, but we help one another in this community. We show up. And this kind of attitude that people deserve to be mistreated because they didn't meet some expectation of gratitude is unbelievable to me. So please, here's another place where you have power. It may not be with the president, it may not be with our state legislatures, but it is with our governor and our elected officials at the state level to remind them that these little not-for-profits that are struggling to create a better community here, we deserve that money, not them. This community deserves that money. We deserve that money because we paid it into the pot, right? Like, it isn't like money that got made and brought to us.
I'm sorry, you lost me there.
Through taxes. Through taxes,
So the
right?
citizens paid it.
Yeah, we paid it in. We're taxpayers in the state of Montana. We paid it in. and we deserve it back in our community. We don't have to beg for it or somehow show up and say, we really appreciate this, thank you so much. You know, we were sorry that we didn't make it to your meeting. That attitude is really toxic, and it's really infiltrating because it's coming from the top. We deserve it. Federal workers deserve it. People who are getting laid off deserve it. They're lazy, they're wasteful. You know, that kind of an attitude is very toxic in our little community. 1 million people in the whole freaking state. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your time.